What is happening, responsible day traders? Today is Sunday, July 24th, 2022. I'm Lindsay Duff, and this is Responsible Day Trading. So I've been a little busy lately. I did do a couple of videos for the vault last week. So if you want to go and check those out, if you're in the vault, you can definitely see those. I did trade on one of them, but I talked about my previous day's trades on both of those. So that's what you'll be able to see on that. I have no idea what the news is. I can only see my 233 so far in the market, so I don't have any clue what's going on. We're going to find all this together and see how it's going. Trying to think if there's any announcements coming up really right now, and we're just reaching the end of the month, and yeah, just keep that in mind. School's going to be starting soon. Kids will be back in school, and I'll have a little bit more quiet time during the day. Also, I'll be up earlier to get my son to school, so I know that will have me at my desk a little sooner. All right, guys, let's go ahead and check out the news. Okay, guys, I have got my screen set up just a little bit different than I used to. I do only utilize this space on my screen mainly because I don't like my charts to be too big. So I think whenever they're too big, I just put too much emphasis in certain areas. So we'll come back to that in just a moment. All right, so let's go ahead and head on over to the news. Let's check out the market news. FOMC this week. Okay, so Monday we don't have anything. Tuesday we've got news 30 minutes after market opens, and we've got two of them coming out, so that may be a heavy hitter, so we just want to pay attention. Wednesday, FOMC at 1 o'clock, and we've got some news in the morning also. So this means it could be a pretty eventful day. Usually right before FOMC comes out, right about 12:30 or so, things start to really slow down. And then right as FOMC hits, it flies off the handle. Thursday's pre-market, Friday's pre-market. So those shouldn't affect really anything, and it's not that we have to stop trading during news. We just want to be aware of when it's coming out so we can keep our minds in the right place. Okay, so last week we were looking at how the price had pulled up to these EMAs. And this little box right here was talking about this area that we could anticipate the market to pull back to. I was saying that I think it should pull back at least to the EMAs here. If not, maybe up in here. Even if it reached the EMAs up in here, it's still going to be a little lower than the price action that happened here. That would say that we have a new low. But just in looking at what we see currently, that may not be the situation. So we have strong EMAs open to the downside. We have MACDs that were showing a lot of strength coming up to the upside. Now, as they were showing this strength coming up to the upside, one thought that I had to myself is, well, it has enough strength to, at the very least, reach towards that next area that tends to give a bounce. Last time we came up into this area of the EMAs, the price held out for almost 2 weeks, right? And it did give moves in between here because that's a big space, but it held out for almost 2 weeks. So that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. So that makes your decisions a little more difficult. You have to really pay attention to what it's saying to pay attention to when that drop is going to happen. Now, what's happening right now is we're still outside of the Bollinger Bands. Do we have strength? No. Price pushed up and up and up, and it closed towards the upside, but as soon as we got up towards this area, we got a nice little reversal bar, so just shot out a little bit more, and now it's making the attempt to push down. Now, we're going to need to see these MACDs really have enough weakening that they're going to get inside of the Bollinger Bands or possibly look to break back below if we're really going to expect this to just keep on continuing to the downside. My personal anticipations, if it comes back, are like this. To come back towards this area, maybe pull up and then come down all the way into here. And maybe see something along the lines of this happening, still creating divergence between the price and the MACDs. So that's one expectation that we can have there. And it's not a bad expectation to have. I could see that being a really strong possibility. I mean, and we don't even have to get this little bit of a pullback here. It's just giving us space to pull back in as the EMAs come down, because we have to envision what it's going to be like when it comes down there. All this stuff isn't going to be in the same place because it is based off what the price action does. And so that, I don't want to delete those. So those are going to take a little while to open up and come down. Now, let's just say that this doesn't come back down at all. Although I'm really kind of anticipating it starting to slow. The BBs are really getting close together, something more along the lines of this. So let's say that we just continue and pick up the pace, and we're going to look at the 28,657 in just a moment, and we'll get some really a little bit more anticipations from that of what we're expecting. So let's say that this just slows down a little bit and it doesn't roll, the MACDs don't roll, then this continues up. As I said, we could go all the way up to this EMA and still be below this last pivot and move back down. So that is another possibility. Are we going to pull here, pull back up? Are we going to pull here, drop to the downside like a rock? Typically, with that kind of pullback, if it does move down really, really fast, it is going to go ahead and still give us divergence because the MACDs are going to struggle to catch up with these bars. We have these long bars and we've got a little BB. So the BBs take a little bit of time to catch up, which is great. It gives us all kinds of signals that we can read and listen to. So, as I've said, the optimist in me would like for this to continue up, but I think we just got to pull back into the area and we might see this slow and roll to the downside. But let's look at what the other charts are telling us. Oh, well, I may not be right on that thought process, but we shall see. Okay. So as we're looking here at the 28,657, and we kind of block these off a little bit so it's not so distracting. The 28,657 is actually in a position that's poised to go to the downside, considering we haven't really broke outside of the Bollinger Bands here. They're very, very weak MACDs to the upside. We've reached into this area of the EMA and the resistance in order to push it down. But let's talk about where the first area that it could push to. Well, the first area is the area of the next EMA below it. And we've reached it and we've touched it. And there's not really been a reaction, but also, we're just opening for the day. We haven't even really gotten any movement on the 233 much yet. It's only an hour and 3 minutes after opening. So right now, what I'm reading is, yes, we are inside of the EMAs. And yes, we have had a strong move to the upside. Yes, we have a higher pivot than we did before trying to present itself here. Okay. But yes, we also have areas that could create a bounce directly above and directly below us. So in a typical situation like this, I kind of like to see a breakthrough and a pullback. So if we broke through here, it would give us a lot of space to run down to equal this previous pivot area. That's 30 points or so between there. So definitely by looking at this, I could see a reason. Let me put that back so we can just really break this down. You could see a reason on your smaller tick charts to take trades in between this area. Right now we have blue BBs. They're pointing to the upside. They are super weak. Okay, these are not what we look at and say, oh man, those are strong MACD BBs, because they're just barely making outside of that top Bollinger Band. They're actually just kind of sitting on it. Now, the further I pull away this chart, the bigger that space between the BBs is going to look, but that's unrealistic. We want to see what it looks like when it's together. And we don't see strength, which is something more along the lines of this, where separation is happening between the BBs as it's pushing in that direction. That is showing us strength. this is showing us weak moves currently. Weak moves that's got us up towards that top Bollinger Band. So if this very weakly pulls back, I'll be looking for the bounce off of that bottom Bollinger Band to move it up to the upside and break through that top EMA. Or let's just, look at the other side of that coin and say, okay, well, if this breaks through, rolls down and pushes and breaks through this bottom Bollinger Band and doesn't give us any kind of divergence and the BBs take a little while to start turning white, then I'm going to expect it to, at the very least, push down towards this area right here, equaling that previous pivot area, maybe even exceeding it. So for me, it feels like it's a little early to tell. We're kind of stuck between those areas. When we get back below the zero line and the EMAs, that typically says, hey, we have a shift in momentum to the downside. But you don't want to just get back below. You want to get below and pull away and come back to it in order to say, yeah, we've really made a shift to the downside, because otherwise it's just overrunning areas. So here it hasn't really made the shift to the downside in my thought process, because we haven't gotten back below the EMAs and pulled away from it, even though we have on the MACDs. We want them both working together to get on that other side. And so right now the price is saying, even though we're below here, even though we've got the look to a very weak move to the downside, we have a few things that's telling us that this could still push up a little bit more. And that's kind of what we were saying about the daily chart. I can see that this could still push up. We're still bluing outside, and we are pulling away from the Bollinger Bands, and they are starting to weaken. But we still, like I said, could possibly pull up, a little bit more. And this, if it does pull all the way up here, what I kind of see is people might get a false representation of the move back to the upside because we've pushed up so much higher and gotten to an area that really could just give us a bounce and push it back to the downside. So, but as I've mentioned before, if I'm really going to start having my mindset in, hey, we're back in this long trend, we're going to need to get back above this area, pull back into it, and then see that continuation. And that's going to take some time, right? Because this is the daily chart. So that's going to take some time to get there. Could it happen in just a couple of bars? Sure. Which would be, just a couple of days, but it has more of a chance of taking its time to get there, because it's such a fight and a struggle, because there's a power struggle between the longs and these short trades. Okay. So let's get to the fun part. Let's check out what's happening with the current market, and all of it's the current market, really. There's nothing that we're looking at that isn't the current Emini S&P 500. So what we're looking at here is we're coming down to our trading charts. Now, and I just kind of want to bring this in, because I know that my trading charts may not be the exact same ones that someone else may use. They may have the 4181 over here, and they may have where's that sucker? I don't see him anywhere. I don't see my 610. I might have accidentally deleted it because I don't use it that often, honestly. But they may have the 610 over on this other chart, so I may have accidentally deleted it. But you can see here there's some overlapping colors, right? And let me just take this out of the way for now. Put that out here. There's some overlapping colors in the EMAs. And if I look at my 4181 and my 10946, these are the same EMAs. The small EMA on my 10946 is the large EMA on my 4181. And the small EMA on my 4181 is the large EMA on my 1597. And that goes so on and so forth. And that's part of the reason I leave this one and the 610 out, because there's overlapping EMAs. But that's just helps my vision. So it may be that you want to keep those on there and have a little bit closer, tighter chart system working, right? And none of that may make sense to you. If it doesn't, it's okay. Just let me know. It's all based off of Fibonacci numbers, guys. These are all Fibonacci numbers. They're not just some random number pulled out of the sky. So let's go ahead and look at what we got going on here. So my 1597 will forever be my trading chart. I say that, but that could be untrue because, there was one time that I thought the 610 was forever going to be my trading chart, and I don't even have that sucker on my screen anymore. So it's probably there. I'm open to change, right? So if we're looking here at my trading chart, the 1597, the direction is technically up. We're above the EMAs. We're working to get back above the zero line. It's technically up. I mean, like, look at this bar right here. If you want to talk about confusion, like, oh, should it be pushing to the downside? Is this a flag reversal bar long, or is this a flag reversal bar short? On my 10946, which is the next biggest chart, we have shifted the direction to the downside. How so? We got below, and look, let me just show you where the exact moment was that we shifted the direction to the downside. And you can see right here in the price and the MACDs. So here is where it started to pull away from the EMAs, and we got MACDs below the zero line. This is our, oh my goodness, we have moved this to the downside. Here is our pullback into the area that I look for. I mean, like clockwork, in order to look for opportunities to move back with this movement to the downside now that we're below the EMAs and the zero line. So what's happening right now is on my 10946, we're attempting to move that direction to the upside on the 10946. But we got to remember those bigger tick charts, they move a little bit slower. So it's going to take more time. And I'm looking at these MACDs and I'm like, sheesh, those things are like coughing on the way up. They need a medic. They're not looking beautiful. Does that mean that they can have a second, breath of fresh air and just fly to the upside? Yeah, I mean, we've seen stranger things happen in the market, but right now it is very, very weak outside of the Bollinger Bands, and we are below the EMAs. So this tells me we might see this still give a little bit of pushback to the downside, or maybe it might fight this area to break through it right in here, or actually it's kind of a bigger area, so right about in here, right? So it might struggle to get through this area because of the weakness, and we can already see a purple BB, although we saw a purple BB right here. But look at the difference between the strength of the BBs to get us to that area that we see here than we see here, which means it's going to be easier for them to collapse now that they're very weak, right? So, long story short, our bigger tick charts, directions to the downside. Our trading chart and our entry chart, we have really worked to move the direction to the upside. We pulled up, and I'll show you the exact moment where we shifted the direction to the upside. Would be right in here when we're really pulling away from the EMA here and the BBs are crossing. But we don't look for the long trade until it pulls back into the area and tells us we've got a great space to put our risk and have room to run to the next area. Okay, so those things are extremely important. Where's my risk going to go, and do I have room to run to that next area? Without those guys, you're just kind of like, I don't know what the saying would be, but it's almost just shooting at it blindly, right? I like to say you're clicking it and saying a prayer. So, and that's not always fun. But this is really the moment. Did it move away to the upside here? Not just yet, because we're still below here. Could we anticipate it? Yeah, we could have anticipated it. And after you spend more and more time time with it, seeing this pullback and knowing what to anticipate allows you to take this trade instead of needing to wait until here. But that's just part of the growth and development that you bring to yourself as a trader as you're going through these things. So back to where we're at here on our trading chart. Our direction is up on the trading chart. We are above the EMAs and above the zero line. We got below the zero line here. I'm sorry, we were not above the zero line. We are above the EMAs. We got below here. The price got below, but we want to see it pull away. We want to see it pull away from the area because, yes, did my direction shift to the downside here? It did. And when our direction is shifting constantly, pretty easily, that tells us that we have a little bit of a shifty market. And it's a little harder to trust whenever we pull away and to expect it to continue. So we kind of get stuck in this little bit of a range, right? We get stuck in a range here. We get stuck in a bit of a range here, that we're just kind of stuck between these areas. Can we break out and get to the next one sometimes? Yeah, we can, but it's got us just kind of stuck between these spaces. So really what we want to see with that kind of thing is break through it and continuation, either to the downside or to the upside. Or the other option, and this is really for, I want to say more advanced traders or people who are just more confident in their abilities to get out when they see it turning against them. The only way to trade these kind of things is to take it from the extremes, way up here or way down here, to take the long up. And if you miss it, then you risk the chance of getting in late and getting run over when it pulls right back into that area right before it goes back up again, right? Which is extremely frustrating for anybody. I've been there. I know you've been there. It's a frustrating situation to be in. Nobody likes it. So just remember, it's okay to sit out. You don't have to be in these moves, guys. One of the biggest things we can do is learn from these situations. You know, what happens when I get in late, whenever we're stuck between areas? Write that down, record it, look how many times it happens. And then you're going to learn some hard proof, some hard evidence of why you should never take that trade again. Or if you do, you need to make sure you're in as low as possible and you get out as soon as it starts showing the, just a flinch in the opposite direction. All right, folks. So that is going to wrap that up. I don't think it's done going down, but I also don't think it's going to go much further than below the 3,000 area, where we had an area that just held for so long. This light is so bright in my face. So we're going to just have to keep our eye on it, right? We're going to have to watch it. We're going to have to see what it does. Like I said, there's going to be lots of opportunities in between. You're just going to know what's going on between your ears, so that you make sure that you are not getting in when you are trying to make things happen instead of listening to what's happening. Okay, so pay attention, because that is huge, guys. If you're paying attention to the things that you're saying to yourselves, the things that you're saying to yourselves about being traders, the things that you're saying to yourself about your abilities, you need to pay attention to those things, because those things are important. If I tell myself all the time that I can't, I'm awful, I'm never going to be able to make this happen, guess what? I live that. And so, part of my working with students here isn't just about teaching them about trading. It's teaching them to get to know themselves and get to know what you're willing to do, what you're willing to risk, and also shifting the way that you think about some of those things, right? Because it's important to have your head in the right space. And we can't have our head in the right space every day because we're human. My head is definitely not in the right space every day, because I'm right up there right up there with all y'all. I'm just a person trying to make it. And sometimes I let I want it to happen instead of I see it happening. get in the way, and it eats my lunch from time to time. Remember, guys, if you're part of the vault, there's 2 new vault videos that are going to be in there. There's one from Wednesday and one from Friday. I believe. Maybe it was Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday and Friday that you'll see in there. And then I also have my trading from the previous day that we cover in there as well. So if you have questions over it, let me know. If you want to check out the vault, I'll put a link in the description below so you can check out the vault if you're not already part of it. So I feel like I'm rambling on a whole lot, guys. So I hope that everybody has a wonderful week. Guys, just breathe, take it slow, pay attention. And if you got questions, hit me up. I'll be happy to help. So have a wonderful day, everybody. And as always, you know that I look forward to catching you on the profitable side.